Hi everyone, thank you for joining me in this video where I'm going to be discussing GDPR and how it impacts businesses here in the United States. So I wanted to put together this video and these 10 steps that you can take to follow GDPR so that way you're informed. And there's a lot of false information going on out there about how if you have a business in the United States, you don't fall under GDPR. And that is actually false. There's some truth to that. But if you are doing business with anyone in Europe, or you have a website that you are collecting data about people in Europe, or a website that's available to anyone in Europe if they fill out a form, it does impact you. So while you don't have a business in Europe, so you don't have to follow necessarily all the regulations to the strictest point of the law, you do still need to be aware of how this impacts you. And that's why I have to give these 10 steps that can get you ready to be in the regulation of GDPR. First, I do want to start off with, I am not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. This is my interpretation of all the legal information that is out there. So you need to do your own research, especially consult an attorney. But this is some good information, a soup starter to get you started. So first I want to start off with, what is GDPR? So GDPR is a general data protection regulation. It's been put into effect. It's going to start May 25th in Europe. And it is there to strengthen the regulation around data collection and how it's used and how it's stored and how people can request it, basically for any data that's collected for anyone that's a European citizen. So I want to give you these 10 steps. And the first step is get an understanding of personal information, or as it's known, PII, personal identifiable information. This is any information that is identifiable to a person. So first name, last name, email address, phone number, or even IP address if it's connected to a personal piece of information. So step one is get a good understanding of PII, personal identifiable information, what that is, so that you can understand the data that you need to let people know if you're collecting. Step two, do a risk assessment. Understand what data you're currently collecting from your clients. This can be on a website form, this can be client information, employee information, this can be information that's collected at something like a point of sale. For those of us who are in the United States, those of us who I'm making this video for, this really falls under the website information if you're collecting information from people, if they fill out forms on your website, things of that nature, or if you're marketing to people in Europe, or if you have clients in Europe. Step three, write a fair processing notice. This is not legal jargon document. This is something you can put together. It's actually meant to be in very plain English. It should spell out the following things. What are you going to collect? Why are you collecting it? Who is collecting it? How is it being collected? How is it going to be used? And who will it be shared with? This, if you put together that document, that is going to be your fair processing notice. This is the notice that should be presented to anybody when you are collecting their information. This spells out, again in plain English, no legal jargon, what you are doing, how you are doing it, why you are doing it with that data. Now understand, GDPR does spell out that you cannot collect data without very intentional means on how you're going to use that data. So you do need to spell out how you are going to use this. You can't just be scraping information from anybody out there. If they fill out a form on your website, you need to be explaining what you're going to do, if you're going to be enrolling them in your newsletter, if you're going to be marketing to them, if that form is just going to be to send them a white paper, whatever it is, you need to be spelling out very clearly what you are going to be doing with their information. You cannot just be unintentionally gathering information. Step four, secure and organize that data. Make sure you know where that data is going to be secured, how you're going to limit access to it, and how you're going to limit any exposure of that data, because you do need to secure the data you're collecting. This is important because a person can request at any time all of their information, and you must supply it free of charge within 1 month of that request. So if someone requests, I want all the information that you have about me, you need to be able to turn that over very quickly. So having it organized is going to be a huge benefit to keeping in that regulation. Also, if someone requests that you delete all of your data, having it organized will make that very easy. You do need to be able to delete it at any request. So having it in one place, or at least organized in a way that if it's in one CRM and one web form, you need to have that very kind of spelled out, know where that is, so that you can give that request, whether it's a delete or give the information. Step five, have an opt-in to any data collection. This can be a checkbox on a form. Since we're talking about businesses here in the United States, if it's just a website, put a checkbox. Make sure that checkbox cannot be auto-checked. They have to check it. that is going to be their opt-in. You can do a double opt-in where they check a box, then get an email, but you can just do a checkbox on a website would be the easiest thing. Step 6, have a layered opt-in with your fair processing notice. So what this means is if you have that checkbox, you need to have underneath that checkbox, you can have your full fair processing notice, or you can have just a link. So you would have the checkbox to opt in, and then you have to read our fair processing notice, click here. That would take you to that plain English, non-legal jargon fair processing notice. Step 7, you must have an opt-out. So if you are sending emails, you must have an opt-out. Now, if you're using services like MailChimp, things like that, they always have that unsubscribe. That would work as your opt-out. But also, if you're sending text messages, you need to have an opt-out there. If you're doing call services, you need to have an opt-out. If you are sending regular mail to anyone in Europe, you need to have the ability for them, and maybe at the bottom of the letter, to have a clear process on how they can opt out. Step 8, make sure everyone in your company knows about these new processes that you're putting in place. That way, if someone calls and says, how can I opt out? They know exactly how they can do that. So have that documented and available to all of your employees. Step 9, designate a data protection officer in your organization. This is the person who's going to handle all of this process for you, spell it out, and then they're going to be the ones that if anyone has a question, they can go to. That should be the person who knows this process inside and out. And finally, step 10, look at your existing data that you have with clients. Look through your existing data. If you have any information on any persons who lives in Europe, you need to contact them and have them opt back in is going to be the safest way to make sure that this data that you have currently collected follows GDPR going forward. So again, these are the 10 steps that you should put into place to make sure that you're kind of in regulation for GDPR. Again, for us who have businesses here in the United States, us who have marketing agencies here in the United States, if you have clients outside in Europe, you need to be making sure you're talking to them about this, that they're putting this into practice. If you have clients, you need to make sure what you're doing with their data follows these regulations. If you have a website, make that fair processing notice, make that opt-in, make sure you have opt-out, make sure you have that clearly defined, make sure you're going through these 10 steps on your website so that way if anything happens, if someone from Europe opts in, it's all done for you. You already have it all covered. I hope this helped get you started. Of course, if you have any questions, you can reach out. We're over the next couple weeks putting a lot of our information together, so I would say after the beginning of May, we'd be more than happy to discuss any sort of questions that you have about this process as we further go through it. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope this helps get you started. Of course, just do a quick Google search for GDPR, and you can do all the research you want. You can go to their official website and read all the technical and legal jargon there as well. Thanks again.